Chief Mastin is with us. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
So was it a good 4th of July weekend?
Yeah.
People pretty good?
People behaved. Lots of people got out and saw the town, and it was a good thing. People needed to get out. People needed a break.
Yes. And out they got.
Yeah.
From a first responder standpoint, what goes through your head 2 weeks after the biggest storm we've had? And how much rain are we going to get?
Well, and we put out messaging early on, and it continues to be, especially with cleanup. The messaging came from Sam Anderson. You know, we work together in emergency operations center. Our city engineer Sam had made the recommendation in your neighborhoods, clean the catch basins out of the streets, and that's not just a one and done thing. As we continue to clean, and you know, you see these trucks being loaded up, and bark's falling off, and sticks or branches, leaves, everything gets into that catch basin, and once it gets clogged, it becomes that filter, you know, the clogging filter, if you will, and rain doesn't escape as fast as it should, so that's when you start to get the overland flooding in streets. And I think I heard a few reports of lower areas around town where, down by like Diamond Point, it dips down, and a few others over on Mississippi Avenue that historically dip down and fill up with water when it does rain really heavy. But, you know, we're thankfully moving past the storm, but now we're in that cleanup phase, which is going to be a long phase. I would just recommend that people get out and clean those catch basins periodically, because that could potentially create a whole new headache for everybody. And it's easily maintainable, you know.
Safe to say that overall crime numbers may be down here in the last couple of weeks because everybody's so busy?
But it is fair to say. Maybe that's a nuance to the whole thing. We have been, I better knock on wood, and my folks would be mad if I say the Q word, but it's been good. We're back to normal, steady business. I would say it's probably less than it normally is, but yeah, I think people are just busy, and I will say I think people have really come together. It's been interesting for me to see the resiliency of our community. I've always thought we had a strong community and we would help our neighbors, and now you're actually able to see it now and see people get out there and pitch in to help their neighbors, pitch in to help clean up our parks and our public areas where everybody gets to use them. It's been pretty awesome to see that.
Unfortunately, we have a fair number of people who live in those parks. What has the department been? Has anything changed since the parks were closed and they weren't supposed to be there?
Well, I would say, the short answer is they're not supposed to be there. There is no camping in our city parks, and we work with them. We have very good relationship. I'll say with our homeless population, we know each other by names. We joke with each other often, and they do need a place to live, to call home, so to speak. And sometimes it's the weather that moves people. Sometimes it's, it's most often when it becomes a visual, people notice them, and we get complaints. I'll be honest, we don't proactively go out and look for people camping in the woods.
Right.
We have a complete understanding people need to live somewhere. But when it becomes a complaint basis, we have to act on those complaints, because it is technically against our city rules to live in our parks, and we help them move. We have a relationship, and we're all human, but
sure,
we also have an understanding that people need a place to live.
We're going to have several summers in a row now of some big road construction issues. Middle school drive starts today.
Is it today?
What is the message you would like to get out to people that travel in that part of town?
Well, I would say patience and a little pre-planning. I have said if you're referring, the middle school is an offshoot, and Sam Anderson probably would be a better person. Maybe I'll invite him next week to speak about that project in general. But middle school is an offshoot of the 197 reconstruction. And I sat through 3 years of planning and discussions and 2 different sessions about that. And I know that corridor is a hot topic. It's our biggest thoroughfare through the city. It affects commerce. It it affects our ability just to get from one end to the town to the other, and we become so accustomed to, and we're all creatures of habit. We get on this road, and that's how we get somewhere. There are a lot of other side roads, and if we just explore our city a little bit, we would all alleviate a little bit of congestion in what is going to be a pretty heavy construction zone for 2 years. Like I said, that middle school area, I think in some of the conversations that the goal is to get that built out before school starts. I mean, you always have those markers, but you never know when weather's going to happen and things change. But I would tell people, have patience, understand that there's a lot of thought from a lot of experts that went into this. And I recognize we still like to fight the roundabout idea. I will say from a personal standpoint, I see a lot of people getting way better at roundabouts, and they work a lot smoother now that we understand them. And
but the people that mess them up are getting worse, I think.
well, I think part of the problem with roundabouts in Minnesota is the Minnesota nice. We're too nice.
Yeah.
And I'm all about being cautious. I'm a firm believer of predictable is preventable. But we also have to recognize it's a yield sign, not a stop sign. Mm-hmm. And that one act of stopping throws off the whole function of a roundabout. The efficiency that comes from a roundabout. I can tell you, so I go north and south at least twice a day, sometimes more than that. And coming into town in the morning and leaving it in the evenings, I will say it is smoother. I spend a lot less time sitting at a red light to leave town or come in.
Sure.
Even when people do stop when they probably don't need to or probably shouldn't. If we learn that a roundabout is no different than merging onto the highway, we all seem to be able to get that.
Yeah.
Because there is a yield sign. It's just yield if there's a car that's going to collide with you, so to speak. And it's that Minnesota nice. We just want to go ahead, go in front of me, and that.
But there is some on the opposite of that. There's some folks that are gunning a little because they can shoot the gap.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And they, part of the design of a roundabout is to keep it tight, so you have to go slower. But people can push it through there, and I've seen that as well. So there is that balance.
I don't envy any semi-driver
Right.
going through those. It's just not fun.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
And not that you would know, but I would say the cleanup on the streets will continue in the city for, we're 2 or 3 weeks in right now.
Yeah.
And
I would say in the discussions I've had with our city engineer, it's his intent to continue multiple passes. He did mention in our last one, and I said I think that's important to message, so here I am messaging it. This is pickup. It's not meant to be a yard service. So there's some people that I think have an expectation that their grapple truck is going to pick up all the twigs and all the sticks. It's not. It's there to get the big pieces, and the homeowner needs to pitch in a bit and be ready to clean up that pile that's left, because there is going to be some. I've also seen one feller decided to dump his grass clippings all over it. As what appears to be, I want, free yard service, but that's not the intent of it. So we need to recognize that this is just we'll say an emergency pickup service. It's not going to get every stick. You're going to have or start working on a plan now to get rid of what's left. But according to Sam Anderson, there are intentions to do multiple passes. Now we also have to recognize there are lots of miles of streets in our city.
Sure.
And even one pass is going to take a long time. I don't know that they've done one pass on the entire city yet. And like you said, here we are 2+ weeks in. This is going to go well into the fall. I would speculate you're going to see piles into next year.
Gotcha.
So people who really love their yards might want to consider, maybe I got to pick this up myself, because it's potentially going to sit there a long time.
Yeah.
If they can. Yeah.
Heard the mayor say last week, the latest estimate is 9 million trees.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa. And then I'm like, well, who's out there counting?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you look around and there's a lot of trees down. I have to imagine. I haven't seen anything other than a few distant pictures from aerial, from a few drone pictures. But I have to imagine if you were up in the air, it's got to look quite catastrophic. I've heard the east side is.
Yep.
It's almost a complete change of landscape on the east side of the lake. How different it looks from the air. But I've not personally seen it myself.
Or were they just counting? They got to 7 million and they messed up, and they're like, there's got to be like 9 million.
Yeah, well, there is a system in forestry using aerial photos. You can really do a lot of surveying and count trees from the air, but I don't know how you do that in a blowdown situation, because, when they're standing, you might get an accurate count.
On Friday, do you guys get calls of people having heat exhaustion or a little bit? Or
I don't know specifically that we did. However, we do. There are medical emergencies that come in, people exerting themselves. I hate to say, most of us probably don't hydrate nearly as much as we should, and yet we still go out, and now we're dealing with big brush piles and cleanup, and we're sweating like crazy, and we still don't drink enough water, and then suddenly we're dizzy, and so we do have those. I think any area.
Figured as much.
What was the parade like yesterday from your standpoint?
18 minutes. That's what it took me to get through. It was definitely shorter. Typically, when the sheriff and I lead it, it's typically over an hour to get around the whole loop. Yesterday was 18 minutes. It was shorter. It was definitely. I was curious how the attendance was going to be, because we had some conversations with JCs, because clearly they had to change the route up a little bit. And, one of the topics that was brought up was, well, we used to spread out over 20 plus blocks, and now it's 9 blocks. How are all these people going to fit? Just talking to others in my office this morning that chose not to come because they thought the same thing and didn't want to be in this massive crowd where it was hot and everyone was, but that wasn't the case. I would say to me, it didn't look even though it was only 9 blocks long, it definitely was shorter. But attendance-wise, it might have been one of the lighter years.
Sure. Well, understandably.
So it wasn't overpopulated. It wasn't vacant. It was just, I think, a fair number. I think a lot of people just either had other things to do or didn't know what to expect, so they decided to stay home.
There's a bunch of trees where we always sit.
Exactly. Or no trees.
Right.
My shade's gone. So.
A bunch of trees going the wrong direction.
That's right.
Perfect. Anything else you got, Chief?
No, I think that's it. Beautiful Monday out.
Yes. Thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate it.